registered.
Hello everyone. So Priscilla, you can start the discussion now.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you want to count me off or just start now?
Yes. You can start now.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Priscilla Agoncillo. I am co-founder of Original Breeders League, a multiple award-winning cannabis genetics farm. And I am here today to moderate this panel discussion on cannabis research and development, focusing on genetics. I have an amazing group of gentlemen here with me, and we're here to talk about the various things that are happening through their regions, some of their background, what their companies do, and I'm happy to also answer any questions that come through to the CISW team. So one of the first, I'll start with a little bit about the topic that I wanted to discuss, and that was, you know, there really is, the synopsis of this panel discussion is, as this industry is emerging and evolving, we face some really, really interesting but great challenges ahead. And one universal problem to solve that I see is researchers, you know, there's still so much more to understand about the genetics of this plant. Through understanding the genetics of this plant, we're really able to affect policy, the direction of research, and just so much more that can improve the industry drastically. So with that, I'd like to open the room to my fellow panelists. Adam, I'd love to hear you speak, and if you could tell the world who you are and what your company does.
Thank you for hosting us, and I'd like to say just thank you also to all the technical team that's behind this, to making this happen, and being so patient in working with it and having the waiting room makes it very, very professional. Been to a few conferences online and of course physical, and this is really a pleasure. I'll try to keep it a bit short. I've been in this industry since about 2013, which is almost a lifetime, an elephant lifetime. Our company designs and builds facilities from A to Z, from grow through extraction rooms to laboratories to finished product. We've done about 18 of those facilities around the world, Canada, the United States, a little bit in Europe, and now we have in Israel. We were attracted to this business. I actually come from the vaccine world. Many years I worked in that space, and when I saw the health benefits, I was convinced of cannabis and how much the medical, physical, and mental elements can be helped. I got into this space, and it's been a great time. It's been a lot of fun. Your subject on genetics is very, very important. I think we are now, I think 3 years ago, we were in growing cannabis was 101. Extracting cannabis was about a year ago. And today, more and more people understand the importance of the genetics for this and controlling them and having them properly registered. We had a short chat earlier, and it's very important that all the genetics that people are working with are properly registered with the local health authorities, so nobody is infringing on patent use of other people's genetics on the one hand. On the other hand, with this knowledge of what the different genetics and what plant can help what ailment, or what molecule can help what element, we're all learning together how to bring about a better treatment for people, mental and physical.
That's wonderful, Adam. And, you know, speaking of, I'm glad that you mentioned a bit of the history of where cannabis genetics has been and where the industry has evolved, and how more and more people are really understanding the value and importance of cannabis genetics in their operations. With that, I would love to bring in Laurence into the conversation, because he has a very prolific, very deep history concerning cannabis genetics and ethnobotanicals. Laurence?
An example of doing genetic research, I'm happy to show something like this.
Wow. you need to share it with friends.
Yeah. From some of my
the sword.
From some of the license. I have one of the largest licenses for personal production use in Canada. My
Wow.
my prescription is 250 grams a day.
And you're still up and running.
Yes. So I'm really into genetics, and I really enjoy recording what's done on a yearly basis, because I treat the cannabis that I've grown much like a fine wine for different years, or for like different cheeses or other things that have a year. So I make sure that I'm dating everything that way. And I probably have about over 400 different strains, going all the way back to the original Maui Wowie, because I lived in Hawaii for a good part of my life and speak Hawaiian almost as well as I speak Nepali. So that's interesting to be able to, so for me to be able to share things like something like this. And this one here, as you can see by the size, and so that would go to somebody all by itself as one item.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
So good fun to be able
Jedi
to
Master.
Well, Laurence, let me, sorry to interrupt. Let me ask you a short question. Laurence, what is the highest THC level from a genetic that you've seen in your rich experience of your time?
Probably about 27%.
Wow. Wow.
So that's right up there, maybe a little more. I wish I had one of those. Now you can buy a device that will help you, and they're only about $1,000. They used to be about, it used to be $20,000 to get a device that would,
For testing.
analyze and give you a readout. So it's a good idea to be able to do that. I'm certainly very much into it. I'm working with a few people regarding, more branding of my name and some of the products. So that's fun for me to be able to have exposure to large quantities, to be able to do different extractions. And I found, much like what's happened in Nepal, where ultimately, when I was interested in doing the photography, it was easier for me, rather than asking people to compromise any question, it was always easier for me to buy samples, and then we would work on it, because then it was my particular substance, and it was easier to do the photography. So as a result of that, it made it, it gave me an insight into being able to do photography. And of course I would have 3 or 4 extra cameras, so that other people around could take photographs as well, or of me while we were doing these things. So it's a very, I've really learned a lot about what the bottom line is. And it's not who you know, it's how well you get along with who you know. Because it doesn't matter if you know somebody and you don't get along with them, that doesn't do you any good. So it's all a question of getting along, and that's what people are learning to do, is to get along. And of course, COVID is slowing things up, not slowing things down, because down is a different attitude. And as a result of knowing how to give people encouragement, which we should all be doing every day, all the time. We should always be encouraging each other. There's no time for anything else. Everything else is living in the past. So by encouraging each other all the time, the world becomes a better place and gives you a better feeling. And if you're improving yourself, then of course you're making the world a better place as well, because we're on our way out to the universe. And it's obvious by
beautiful,
the
Laurence.
technology that's going on. Yeah, it is. And I'm happy to share it. And it's easy for me to share, because I have such a feeling of confidence because of what I've accomplished. I'm also responsible for a term called bud pornography.
And there is such a thing. Laurence, you brought up a really, really great point, especially when it comes to cannabis genetics. It's the ability to get along and work together. The only way that cannabis genetics can advance is if breeders actually work together, that they support each other, that you have more access to more libraries, to more genetics, that you can do more testing sites, and you can get so much more participation, and that's how you exponentially create things. With that, I'd love to have Pratik. He's mentioned Nepal several times. Please let us know what's happening in the genetics department from Nepal.
Well, we're researching currently, and Nepal is the place of origin. So there is a lot of life here, and cannabis is growing here like earthworm is made out of soil naturally. and we don't need GMO. Not a lot of monoculture farms are here, but cannabis sativa is growing wild here, and there are around 110 different strains of cannabis growing here. And it's an honor to meet Laurence, because he was also sharing about how he reinvented this temple ball. So this temple ball has a big story, and it was regarded as one of the best uh, hash in the world. So basically, in Nepal, mostly we find there is THC level up to 35%, and then there is CBD level up to 65%. So basically, what we are doing here is currently we are researching, but at the same time, we are also trying to preserve what is already here, because there is this thing called biopiracy, and basically the whole idea of this company and this vision that we see is to protect the people, because we have this ancient knowledge of Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, what happens, they basically it is the science of the elements, but inside these elements there are atoms, and inside these atoms there are like proton, neutron, electrons, and talking on a quantum physicist level, there are like photon and neutrino particles. So basically, the cannabis that is growing here, it is already like it is not modified, it is very natural. So basically, when we use this as a medicine or anything, then what it does, it helps us to directly connect with our universal consciousness. So basically, the people out here, they are very much in tune with it, and Nepal is very rich, but still in a lot of places, like in research and all these things, it still is growing, it still is learning. So we are having people out here who are researching and collecting the data, because currently the valuation of our company is really high, and we are bringing like currently we are attracting many university leaders who are interested to come here and build the data, collect the data. So this would kind of like take it to the next level. So our goal is in the next 3 years to take the valuation to 600 million. So with this, what we are trying to do is protect the people, because we don't need GMO here. Already we are very rich in life.
And
Well,
rich in
thank you
your
so
heart
much.
too.
Oh,
Rich in your heart.
Yeah.
Good heart, very rich heart.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Namaste.
Pratik, for sharing that. That's really wonderful to hear that you are protecting landrace and indigenous strains. That's a very, very important thing. So many countries have lost value. I mean, we can't even begin to enumerate how valuable these landrace or heirloom strains are, especially for the future advancement of cannabis and hemp genetics. Johan, I know that you've mentioned earlier there are some regulatory issues around where you're from, which is Malaysia. Could you talk more about the political environment around the genetics and how the industry is evolving, and pivoting around those restrictions? Johan, it looks like we may have lost him. That's totally fine. Johan, can you hear? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great, good. You're back online. Wonderful.
Yeah. So
Okay, so the question was, how is it? What are the regulatory? What's the regulatory framework right now around growing in your climate for genetics and the different restrictions that you have?
Okay. First, it was so inspiring to listen to our other fellow panel speakers with their experience in modification, and we are among the Asian countries who have not yet legally plant the hemp and the whole cannabis plant. But under the association now, I'm representing the Malaysian Hemp Tech Industrial Research Association. We have gathered some details information about seedings, but I would say we are still in the very new stage, you know. But of course, we try to look at what are the current technology that are available, which we can, you know, complement towards the linking hemp into the sustainable development goals. So we don't have even the indigenous doesn't allow to plant cannabis or hemp plant, and it's still now under the dangerous drugs. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, it's very light, but I heard you. You were saying that you're pretty much very restricted right now. It's still considered dangerous drugs, and you know, that's something that we've all faced, and we're definitely pushing. Every single country, every single state that gets legalized, more and more scientists that come on board, institutions, universities, and companies that have interest in cannabis. We have seen that it's really opening up, you know, some of the other technology that we're seeing rise in the industry concerning cannabis genetics are a lot of amazing tools that weren't necessarily available for cannabis genetics before. A lot of genome mapping, for example, doing complete DNA sequencing of the plants is going to be very important. One of the projects that I was involved with in the past, we did research with in Spain, and they were using CRISPR technology. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but in the instance of cultivating in Malaysia, where once they define, you know, the limitation of what THC is, and they start going with hemp, you can use some of that technology to maybe turn off, let's say, the THC producing gene. So now you can still take advantage of the rest of it and not have to worry about not being in compliance with, you know, being in compliance with the regulations at that time. Adam, are you seeing anything on your end regarding other types of technology bringing into the space that will help with breeding and the preservation of genetics?
Definitely, for sure. In Israel, fortunately, cannabis started, or medical treatment with cannabis started over 30 years ago. And it was in a very, very controlled environment, as I mentioned, only in hospitals and clinical trials. Professor Rafael Mishulam, actually who had his 90th birthday a few days ago, so we'll say Mazal Tov to him, is a close, I would like to say a close colleague. I know him well. He's a very nice gentleman. He's always been open and sharing information, as Laurence and Pratik had mentioned, and Priscilla, you mentioned. And it's important to share information. A few years ago, when they started trying to match DNA, people with physical problems and their DNA with proper treatment of different cannabinoids, and not only the THC, but CBG, CBN, we know there's over 400 out there. That started something here in Israel in the different laboratories, again, in very, very controlled environments. Mr. Johan, I know that your country is very strict. Israel is as well. And so it's very well monitored by the health authorities, by the police authorities and whatnot. I take your point, Priscilla, about sharing knowledge. There are different laboratories that do share. We as a company, Bioscience, have a great interest, Pratik perhaps talking, and Laurence as well. There is technology out there. It's going down to nano. There is so many combinations of the different molecules that can take place and match to different people from around the world that is just mind-boggling. And there's so much more to be learned, and we see in a short period of time how much it's benefited people physically and mentally, the different formulas. And we do need to map them, track them. As I mentioned earlier, they have to be properly registered so that nobody infringes on somebody else's patents or product, but to be exploited for the benefit for other people. There's amazing work. There's over 450 clinical trials, I think, going on in the world. 200 are in Israel. There's so much information in abundance. The two main subjects, and I'll try to keep it short, that people find, at least from research here in Israel. One is pain management, and the other is for depression and mental health. And those two, we are focused here in Israel, trying to find formulas that are appropriate. Each person has a different background, different genetic buildup in DNA, and we're working at that very hard.
That's great. That data is going to be so essential. Laurence, I know that you have experience with a lot of these landrace and heirloom strains. Have you seen much of a difference during this time from when you were talking about in the 60s and the 70s to what you're seeing in genetics today?
Yeah, I have, and I pretty much welcome people doing the breeding they're doing, because when we first started out, meaning myself, when I first started working on these things and exploring and discovering, there was only 360 elements known to man, 66 of which were the cannabinoids, and now we've gone from 66 known cannabinoids back then to, as Adam was saying, hundreds of them, and which gives, and these are genetics and DNA on these nano levels that are specific to this plant. And that's why it is such a miracle plant, because it has more uses than any other plant in the world. And so as a result of it being able to blend or mix together, we're able to create so many products. And that's one of the reasons why, as you mentioned earlier, you were interested in also discussing some of what's happened as far as prohibition. So basically, the cannabis plant became a threat to so many industries. It was easy for all those industries to gather together and outlaw cannabis just for the sake of it, because it was competing with them and because they could not make money on it. So of course they had to make sure that no one else could use it. And that's basically what had happened. So I'm very happy to see, and of course the genetics that I've developed myself, it's very interesting to be able to see the reception from other people about how glad they are that we've got these such a wide diversity, which makes it also very encouraging for a lot of people to be able to feel that, you know, that they're not going to be locked out because of some people getting involved with patents, which is a part of the way the world is. But I can see where the freedom that people are able to pursue in terms of exploring and discovering new frontiers is certainly a wonderful thing and very encouraging for everybody. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's always, genetics are ever evolving. Just like Pratik, you mentioned earlier, you know, you have no GMOs. Your country is just getting started. You have all these amazing landrace heirloom strains that already are expressing some incredible ratios of THC to CBD, and I'm sure in your area THCV as well. You have a lot of THCV dominant strains, which is really going to open up a whole new bag of different medicines and solutions for people. So very excited to see. I want to know if you have started to look into the preservation and the cleaning of those genetics through tissue culture and the use of micropropagation.
Not yet, but we basically have our own way of researching. That is the Ayurvedic science. So basically what we found out was in the ancient time, they had a different mechanism of study, you know. So basically in those times, the books that was written, so now what we see that the knowledge that is provided in the book is not the same, because time has been evolving. And with that, the nature is also evolving. And there is this thing called impermanence. So we are also moving on with the time. And as I said to you before, that we are very rich in these things, but on a research level, we are still lagging a little behind. And finally, there is a breakthrough that we have been able to build the first research center of Nepal. So currently we are working with the government, because after 1976, there was this Narcotics Act So because of this, things became illegal. So after that, it was not legal. So people did not pay a lot of attention to it. So now finally, there is noise being created, and now we have our partners who are coming from all around the world to do the research.
That's great. That's really great. And that's with a blend of, new technology, the importance of science and research, and the researchers behind that, blending in with the understanding of the root, the essence, and history of the plant. Not just history in its biological form, but also its political history. We have made great strides in this industry to get where we are today. Israel has led that by far more than any other country, and we're really thankful for that, because we are all learning from each other, advancing from each other's work, and we should be able to put a very big dent into a lot of the toxicity that's been put out there by various industries, from what's been happening in industrial agriculture to being able to replace plastics with something that's more biodynamic or biodegradable through hemp plastics, oils, biofuels, food, fiber for pets. I mean, it's endless with this work, and it all really does start with the genetics. So we have about a little less than 5 minutes left. I'd love to open the floor to any of you gentlemen. I saw that Mr. Johan has left. I think he was having some technical difficulties, but I would love to hear some closing thoughts, maybe a sentence or two from each of you.
Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, I want to address Priscilla. I know we spoke about THC, we spoke about CBD, we spoke about a lot of different things that haven't that are exploratory. We didn't talk so much about hemp. I'd like to. I know the discussion was to speak about hemp as well. I read an interesting article today that came about, and it's very interesting that people see hemp as the new golden cotton. Cotton, just like our clothes, hemp will be the new gold of cotton. The prices, they said there are about 29 million pounds of cotton a year that are grown, and there's only like less than 1 million pounds of hemp that is currently grown. So that tells us how far this industry can really grow, not only for the products, for the psychoactive effects, or for the physical, mental effects, but also for, as you mentioned, for building products, clothing, other materials that are natural, that this world would be a bit of a better place for using those natural materials. And it's important to watch that market as well. And I recommend to see that as well. In regard to this conference, I've learned quite a few things from yourself, Priscilla, Laurence, and Patrick. It is a pleasure. I'd like to say also to the team of CISW that they've been very patient with me. It was a little bit technology challenged, and I managed to get online and work everything on the previous lecture and today's lecture, and hopefully tomorrow we have another one. So I appreciate the input from everybody, and I wish everybody the best of luck, and God willing, next year we'll be able to see each other physically, and maybe, God willing, next year in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Would love that. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Pratik?
Would you like to say something more?
Yeah.
I'll go last.
Yeah. It has been a really great learning experience, and like from Adam, from Priscilla, and from Laurence. So it has been an honor. And currently, what we are also doing here is we are focusing more on hemp, because cannabis is still illegal, and we have been lobbying in order to pass the draft. And after that, the work in the cannabis area is going to go more smooth. But what we are trying to do here is when it comes to hemp, there are 60,000 products that we can make out of it, right? So basically what we are trying to do here is we are trying to make that happen, because this plant is rich and it has been providing us enough. And it seems that it is the greatest teacher, because we have been lied to, and this plant is breaking the stereotype in a lot of fields, like in education, in health, in pharma industry, in everything, even in clothing industry. So this is the ultimate solution, and we have come a long way, and it seems that we had lost the way. And finally, we found the hemp plant that is showing us the way, and thanks to CISW, that is bringing all of us together, where we can share, where we can learn. And this is the age of science. So if we can connect all these worlds, and it has become a global village. So like Adam was saying, like the information needs to be exchanged. And this is the age of collaboration more than competition. So if I believe if all of us can together, we can change the world, and let's do it.
That's right.
All right, Laurence,
Johan,
last minute's
something-
yours.
Okay, so as we were talking about some of the things I've been fortunate. So here is what I'm talking about. This was considered to be the first bud for pornography photo. That's a photo in Burma.
Wow.
So that you can see it very close up. And that led to so many people doing this kind of photography, for which I'm glad to have encouraged them. And that's the idea, is to share information. And when we're sharing information, especially in an educational way, then it also becomes entertaining. And those are the three pretexts of everything to do with understanding more, is being informative in an educational way that is entertaining. And that way we can have people's attention, and or even demand their attention, which is an expression in Spanish. Se llama, it calls their attention to it. And by doing that, then it encourages other people to come along and know that they're safe, because we really are now on the midst of starting to travel out into the universe, and that's where there's room for everybody, and we won't have to worry about crowding this planet. Because I'm not sure if you've seen it, but on the space station, you know, they have a Canadian arm which now takes the shuttles or any modules that come up there and connects them directly to the space station, rather than them trying to dock. Because if there was some turbulence, then when it's joined to the space station, that with that bit of turbulence, it could cause damages. So now there's this Canadian arm that takes the shuttle and puts it right into place. So I was fortunate to be watching some program on the University of Washington State's cable station from the university. And I was seeing, because there was two Canadian arms, so I was happening to see for the first time that both the arms had a space shuttle and a Japanese module in place. So when I'm watching two arms like that putting things into place, then I know we're on the way into space, and that's where the world should be focused. And there'll be room for everybody to be able to contribute and participate in a way that's filled with information, that's educational and entertaining.
That's wonderful. Gentlemen, it has been an honor. Thank you so very much. Please reach out to any one of these fine gentlemen. And thank you all for being with us today during our panel discussion.
And can I please get your email addresses? I didn't see yours, Priscilla, or yours, Adam, or yours, Johan. I have Pratik, and I'm not sure who else. I got a couple of them, and I'll gladly say.
I think it's in the text, but I'll put it in the chat again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you all,
guys.
everybody. Everybody stay safe.
Namaste, shalom.
Namaste.
Aloha.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Take care.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.